Drinktony H2O here, the internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for a review of the new Wytches album, Annabel Dream Reader. These guys are a UK-based rock band. This is their full-length debut album. Came out on Heavenly Recordings earlier this year. They built up to the release of this album with some singles and some EPs. A lot of that material appears on this record, and this album, to me, is the sound of a band that gave themselves adequate time to hone a sound and craft their songs. This is the first time I'm hearing of this band, but it doesn't feel like I'm listening to a group in the midst of the incubator stage, which I think happens all too often in the internet age, where we are exposed very early on in an artist's artistic evolution. Not only are there great songs on this record, in my opinion, but to me, Wytches come through with a more interesting cross-section of influences than most bands putting out their debut album, especially in the garage rock world. And at its roots, this record is a garage rock record. Recording-wise, it's a bit of a throwback. The sound of the guitars, the drums, the vocals, it's all very distorted, very brittle. It's somewhat lo-fi. There are some surf guitar style solos on here, some very overwhelming, noisy, psychedelic rock guitar solos. The vocals switch back and forth between this sort of haunting, chilling vibrato, and then screams that wouldn't feel too uncomfortable on like a hardcore punk record. And then occasionally through the guitars we get these sort of eerie, chilling, horror movie themed melodies that would fit very nicely on like a Cramps record or a Misfits record, which leaves a lot of these songs feeling kind of dark and depressing, but also campy and theatrical and fun too. The playing is a little sloppy, which occasionally leaves these guys feeling like a very loose and wild Cage the Elephant, or maybe like Screaming Females or the OCs. But it does add to the rough and gritty appeal of the music, and it's not like it gets so loose and so messy that the songs just kind of lose their flavor and their coherence. And even though I understand the appeal of lo-fi music, I do think this band could get a lot of its points across with a better recording, with just a better balance of the vocals and the guitars and the drums and just some more low end. But despite that, a lot of great moments still shine through in the track listing here, thanks to the very ghoulish riffs and lyrics and very sinister tunes. Even the stalest and most familiar of riffs on this record, being pulled from that 60s garage rock era, are played with this electrifying, youthful exuberance, as if they're being laid to tape for the very first time. Like with the song Burn Out the Bruise, this track is like listening to a sort of gothed out, Halloween-themed, extreme, in-your-face punk version of the White Stripes in their earliest years. Or the song DIGSAW, which has this amazingly badass, explosive chorus riff. Psychobilly surf rock guitar leads, vocals that are very pained and distant. It's like listening to Black Lips, but just sadder and kind of more wild-eyed and freakier. But the band proves that they have some finesse too, behind the very hard, dark exterior, like with the song Wide at Midnight, which has one of the most chilling guitar passages to open up any track on this LP. It's just bats, it's moonlight, it's cobwebs. It really creeps in, and the vocal harmonies over these guitars are wonderful as well. Some cuts on this record really are more dismal than others, kind of like the song Fragile Male for Sale, which takes this classic Hendrix groove and just sort of punks it out a little bit, or the song Part-Time Model. But as the album progresses, Wytches really shows that they have a softer side. The songs really just kind of slow down a little bit. The guitars, the vocals go a little easier. With the song Weights and Ties, the band plays in 3/4. It's a bit of a waltz. It's like they're playing for a zombie-themed prom night. And the melody on this track is dreamy. It's lovely. It's like listening to an Everly Brothers song, but the shrill guitars and the kind of wild vocals still give it some edge. And the song Summer Again, which starts off like a really pretty track, it feels very summery. It's soft, it's whimsical, it's got a bit of a familiar vocal melody to it, some very relaxing synthesizers, but then the song's sadness really starts to pour through as it progresses. The song just very slowly becomes more depressing. And the closing track on this LP, track 13, is in the style of an English folk tune. Maybe not the best song on the entire LP, but it was nice for the band to take on an acoustic ballad. It's kind of stereotypical for a rock band to put their softer songs toward the middle and the end of their record, but it's a formula that these guys adhered to pretty well. You know, they went from hard to soft with highlights on both ends of this record. My only issue really is that there are some songs in the second half that are a little more aggressive and just kind of feel not only unnecessary during this phase of the album, but also a little redundant too when you consider that there are songs that sound kind of alike in the first half of the record in tone and delivery, you know, because the lo-fi recording of these songs really does make a lot of these tunes feel a little uniform at times. Still, I think Wytches came through with an incredibly solid album with a lot of likable tracks, good playing, good writing, just overall, again, electrifying album with a strong, dark horror theme to it. There's something very occult about this band's approach to garage rock and punk that I find very appealing. I'm feeling a strong 7 to a light 8 on this thing. Transition. If you've given this album a listen, what did you think of it? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Why? What do you think I should review next? And that's it. Anthony Fantano. Music, forever.